Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it's still Moneyline with Nancy, and that was Godwin Emefiele addressing the press yesterday during the MPC meeting, the two-day policy meeting that started here in Abuja on Monday and ended on Tuesday. Okuwudili, Egwu, the Vice President at Carrier Set Management, is joining me right now. Mr. Egwu, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm very fine.
What were your key takeaways from the NPC yesterday? Did you expect any rate change?
No, I did not.
Okay, so you expected everything to
remain neutral.
To remain neutral. Why?
One, I don't think we are ripe for rate reduction. As much as we may clamor for it, the economic environment, the macro factors, both external and internal, does not lead to the direction for rate reduction yet. Inflation rate is still at higher than MPC rate at the moment, and is not dropping as one would have expected. But if that one inflation pressure continues, maybe by end of first quarter, we might see a rate reduction, but not for now. And when you now consider that in the developed economies, inflation is rising, quantitative easing is gradually weaning off, and they are beginning to increase their own rates, it will be doing something counterproductive to lower rate at this point.
What are the concerns regarding the economy for you right now? The MBS released GDP numbers this week. Inflation numbers were released last week. The government, federal government, did tell us about the $3 billion Eurobond into dual series, 10-year series, 30-year series, first of its kind. The highest we've done was $1.5 billion. Now we have $3 billion in two tranches. Budget 2018, sitting at the National Assembly. These are all things around the economy that we're really watching. What concerns you the most, taking all this into perspective?
Okay, starting with the GDP Q3 figures. As much as it's gladdening that we have 1.4 positive growth, I'm a bit worried that the growth is still oil sector led. If we break the economy into two, non-oil sector and oil sector, the non-oil sector is still in recession.
Yes.
Practically.
Yeah.
You know, and it's only the oil sector. So the GDP growth we've seen is oil sector led, which is increasing prices,
all prices
and increase in volume. Because if you look at the production volume, we have back to 2.03 million barrels production, which is fantastic. So if we go back and relapse to the days of $23 per barrel, so might possibly go back to recession. So what we should be asking is it that the government policies is not creating the right impact? So if it's not getting the right impact, why is it not creating the right impact?
Fantastic. That was a question I asked yesterday, but it was smartly not answered. It was smartly not answered by the MPC yesterday. I let it slide though, but I think another opportunity will come when I will ask. Because if you take a look at it, the all recovery, or all yes, GDP numbers, recovery 1.4%, but is based on price
and volume.
Yes, price and volume. So that means that technically, whether government policy has not seemingly had effect, or it's not the right policies. What should we do at this point?
I think that it calls for an assessment, performance assessments of the policymakers, and say we've tried to do this, and this is the result we are getting in crop water. How do we now ensure that this economy is fully diversified and non-dependent on oil? Because if we don't have an economy that is weaned away from oil, we will not be as prosperous as we will be. We will keep having this cycle of moving into recessions and out of recession.
But do you think that all the policies government has been putting together, at least since this administration came into power in 2015, is crystallizing?
Yeah, some are very crystallizing, especially in agriculture and FX policy. In agriculture, I mean, there are figures to show that rice importation into the country has drastically reduced. Though, interestingly also, rice importation in neighboring countries is increasing, showing that most of this importation into the neighboring countries could be smuggled into the Nigerian polity. So I think the agricultural effort should be sustained. The CBN Anchor Brewers program should also be sustained. We're beginning to see greater yield in agri-produce. And in going by 2018 budget, there is a plan to establish crop processing clusters and zones in maybe six of them in the 6 political zones. And if we begin to see value chain in agro-processing, I think that will create more jobs, that will create more value in the process, and that will also help the economy. And we begin to see positive improvement. But we need to do more in other areas, like in manufacturing, and then ease of doing business in Nigeria.
Yes.
Reducing the hiccups in the operating environment.
Even though we went up and the government has rolled out the drums on that report, even though we went up 24 places. But we've not even scratched the surface. I don't even want to say it's not Uhuru yet, because we're still 145th position in the world, and a whole lot of barriers are still there.
There are improvements which should be sustained, but we also begin to, the other pillars in the measurement of the ease of doing business, like access to credit, is not improving. Today, government crowds out private sector from the credit market. So how do we improve access to credit? I am very pleased that the Development Bank of Nigeria is beginning to come and do wholesale credit funding to the microfinance institutions to fund MSMEs.
That's businesses,
small businesses. That's a positive development. We should see more to improve access to credit, see more in the area of financial inclusion, because that's one area we...
But can the business, sorry to cut you short, can the business environment survive, no matter what we do, access to credit and all of that, if the structural reforms, or if the structural reforms needed are not put in place, if there's still structural defects? In the ease of doing business, of course, we have issues of multiple taxation, where we were ranked with Venezuela and and some other African countries, multiple taxation, talking about even electricity and all of these are still structural defects holding us to the ground.
We need to do more in the area of electricity, those multiple taxation I have said, like for instance things like permits at the state level and local government level. Those are a big challenge that the medium and micro scale operators face on a daily basis. Take for instance those who operate in Abuja on the small scale level. Go and ask them what they face with AMAC operators, AMAC revenue collectors. It's very
If you even sent me a tweet sometime last week, that we discussed poverty, and he told me AMAC has been to his place like 4 times collecting, are you encouraging business, or you want the business to die? Because if businesses die, you too will be out of work.
So that's a major challenge to ease of doing business. Also power and road infrastructure. Road infrastructure is key. I think if you address road infrastructure and ensure we have access roads to where raw materials are, to where the farm produce are, and ease evacuation to the market, we should be addressing.
What's the role of the states in all of that? Because we know it's not everywhere that we have federal roads. States also have their roads. So what's the role of the states in all of this, in reviving the economy?
The key question you need to ask is even if the federal government and the state government, do they have the capacity to do roads? Because
we need about 30 trillion naira to fix our infrastructure.
Do they have the capacity to do roads?
The next question is, who does the road? Is it private sector?
So even if you allocate the entire capital budget to roads, it will not address the road challenges we have. So the key thing is that how do we now prioritize the road and make it commercially viable, that the private infrastructure, the private sector's funds can come in and provide infrastructure. How do you now make it comfortable, put up a guarantee that will make investors, the pension fund assets, the global hedge funds to come and provide infrastructure and be able to recoup their money in good time.
Should we see more of what's happening in partnership with the federal government, with like LNG, the private sector, for tax credits? Should we see more of that? Private sector collaborating with public sector?
We should. LNG is a model that we should adopt more. Their LNG's model is, I think, was being adopted to do the Lagos-Ibadan expressway. But that road is subject to litigation at the moment. So the private investor that may have pulled that money to deploy to the construction of that road, time is of essence here, time is going, cost of funds is increasing. So that's some of the incentives that will not encourage private investors to fund the infrastructure. So we need to provide some form of comfort for the private sector infrastructure funds to come into infrastructure markets.
As the Federal Executive Council meeting holds today, it's Wednesday, isn't it? I guess about now it should have started because I was told it's 11 o'clock today. What do you think that the Federal Executive Council should be debating? Policies that they should come up with beyond, I think it's a place where contracts have been approved and all of that. What should they be saying at this time? Because there are a whole lot of reports on the ground. I guess they will also talk about the GDP numbers. Yemi Kale should be there. The CBN governor should be there. Bring back MPC's reports to the Federal Executive Council. Among other reports, I discussed poverty last week. In fact, for a week, from Tuesday to Monday of this week. Poverty as a series that if we don't even take time by February 2018, according to the World Poverty Clock, a lot more Nigerians will be pushed into extreme poverty. And I hope that these are the things that the Federal Executive Council will be taking into cognizance and discussing. And let's see what comes out of it. What do you think?
I think if there's one thing that should be on the agenda on the table today is how to lobby the National Assembly to effectively pass 2018 budget
on
so that on time, if possible, before the end of January, so that if you noticed, the manufacturing sector contracted.
Yes. That's why I was asking yesterday the question. The manufacturing sector contracted, the GDP numbers, that's what you're talking about.
In the GDP numbers.
But the PMI is showing us something else.
Because if you have the budget implemented and you have the physical policymakers going into action to implement the budget as desired, you see the multiplier effect in the economy. So top agenda is how to lobby the National Assembly members to ensure that the budget is passed in
I think the Senate is to begin debates on the national on the budget 2018. So you're saying let's see by the end of January, isn't it?
Let every stakeholder be very concerned about how quickly we can pass this budget.
Okay, let me come back to the MPC just as we round up this segment, because I have another segment to talk about Zimbabwe's stuff. So I may ask you what you think about that in a bit. But the MPC, they have 9 members now. 8 voted in favor of keeping the rates unchanged and 1 against the 8. 9 members. The president has approved, has written to the National Assembly, isn't it, for confirmation for the lady, Aisha, to take over as deputy governor. Sulaiman Bara also, who is the deputy governor of corporate services of the CBN, would also be bowing out in December. So you have a lot of spaces. Some other MPC members are leaving. As a market player, what do you have to say to the president, because he needs to also make more names available, and the National Assembly at this time?
We'll have a dilemma in our hands currently, because the Senate is saying that there will be no further confirmation of nominees from the presidency until an action is taken on the acting chairman of the EFCC. And by the next MPC meeting, if nothing is done, there will be no quorum.
Yes.
So the MPC may not meet. So we will now begin to... Because
there will be no quorum, isn't it? Because the way it was yesterday, they had 9. So if Barrow leaves in December,
apart from Barrow,
they will have
the
8.
four non-board members,
yes,
will all be retiring by December. So there will be no quorum in January. So what we now begin to battle with is what's the implication of MPC not holding in January.
And that's it's an important meeting.
It's an important
meeting. It's an important meeting for January's MPC to tell us what they expect and what their projections are. What does he also say? What should be done? What should be done?
It should worry every Nigerian. It should worry so that this dilemma is resolved as quickly as possible. If it requires political solution, let them do it. But what we know is that let MPC be reconstituted so that they have the statutory number of members to form a quorum by January meeting.
How about the boards? Some boards that are still vacant, that needs... The
nominations are already there.
Yes.
The nominations has
There are some boards too that don't have people assigned to them, waiting for nomination. I know Tundela Moore is for FEMA, the chairman, the former deputy governor.
With respect to CBN,
yes,
the board members have been nominated.
Yes.
The MPC members have also been nominated. The deputy governor has also been nominated. What is waiting is confirmation before the Senate.